as it pertains to the property at 3536 Pear Tree Avenue in the Bronx. And of course, our second presenter is going to be by the Greenberg Attorney Group for the property at 2929 Edison Avenue. So that is, what's on the agenda tonight. And we may actually, add time permitting, we may want to talk about something that Mr. Stricker and I have been discussing in private, and we may bring it to the board as well. So before continuing, I actually want to introduce the members of the Land Use Committee. So we have several board members that are here, in which we appreciate, but I want to introduce members of the Land Use Committee so that the presenters will know exactly who they will be talking to this evening. So as I said before, Mr. Carl Stricker is the chairperson of the Land Use Committee. And again, as I said, he will be running this meeting. And we want to make the announcement that Mr. Attorney Harry Singh, we've appointed as the vice chairperson of this committee. Attorney Singh has a number of years of litigation experience. And quite frankly, he is absolutely impressive as far as his land use skills. And so, we're happy to appoint him as vice chair, and he will be helping Mr. Stricker as it pertains to this committee.
He also will be secretary.
There you go, Mr. Stricker. There you go. I also want to announce, let me just do some further announcements, and then we're going to turn it over to you, Mr. Stricker. So as far as committee members are concerned, so we have our first vice chair, even though she's not a member of the Land Use Committee. Our first vice chair, Mr. Jerry Bennett, is here. But the committee members are as follows. Our second vice chair, in addition to our transportation chair, Mr. John Isaac, is a member of the Land Use Committee for the various reasons we just stated. Our current secretary, Ms. Judith Benitez, as well as chair of the Economic Development Committee, is a member of this committee as well for obvious reasons. Our soon-to-be recording secretary, Ms. Carla Barsati, who has been a longtime board resident, is a member of this committee. Mr. Carl Lanzano, who of course is the chair, excuse me, Ms. Barsati is also the chairwoman of the Legislative Affairs Committee and obviously for chairing her committee is why she's a member of this committee as well. Mr. Carl Lanzano, who is of course the chair of the Health Committee, is also a member of this particular committee as well. The former chair of the Education Committee, Mr. Anthony Reed, hopefully will be on. He's a member of this committee. In addition to Ms. Nicole Weir, who has been a board member for a number of years, she's also on this committee. And I'm happy to announce some newer board members that we've appointed to this committee. So Ms. Denise Bond, who is the vice chairwoman of the Parks and Recreation Committee, but she's also our environmental liaison. She is here, in addition to two brand new board members who we hope to hear quite a bit from in their contributions, and that's Mrs. Keisha Lago Martin, as well as Ms. Sydney Blair, are members of this committee. So with that being said, I would like to welcome you all to this meeting and thank you for your time. And Mr. Stricker, I'm going to turn this over to you. The meeting is yours, sir.
Okay, everybody is present from the land use?
Unmute myself. I will take the roll, Mr. Stricker, and let you know.
Yes, is everybody that's on the committee?
I do not see everybody that should be here, but most of them are here.
All right, so we'll make note of who's not here tonight, all right?
Right, exactly. So I will do that, Mr. Stricker.
Thank you. And before we start presentations, I have one question. Are we supposed to vote tonight also on approving the water issues, the Sandy storm response?
Technically, we did that at the the general board meeting.
The land use never officially approved it. I mean, it's been approved like 2 years ago. I mean, but do you want to do that again to cover us, or we should be fine?
I mean, we could. I mean, if we wanted, we could do it again. But I mean, I thought we did that at the general board meeting because they needed that they needed the vote by
ASAP.
December 28th. And
Okay,
so we
so
did it. What was that, Mr.
Okay,
Sticker?
now let's go with the hearings tonight.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Okay, the first one is Pear Tree Avenue.
Yes, sir.
Would the representative please announce yourself and what relationship to the project you are?
Okay, hang on for a second, Mr. Stricker. I need to, yep, okay, they're good. So yes, Pear Tree.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. My name is Musa Moore. I represent Moore Consultancy Corp. The applicant for the application is actually the Storage Fox. And you're correct, the project is at 3536 Pear Tree. First, I want to thank Ursula Green for doing a great job to keep us notified of everything that's been going on. And we definitely appreciate her. With me, we have our land use attorney, Richard Lobel, and Amanda, who I think I will turn it over so they can go into the presentation and introduce the rest. Richard, are you on the line?
I am. Thank you. Good evening to everyone.
Wonderful.
So I'm joined tonight by Amanda Ionati from my office, who's going to be scrolling through the presentation on our screen. The applicant is Dino Tomasetti, who is with us as well and can answer any questions going forward about the operations of the facility here, as well as Victor Folletti, who's the project architect, who can run through some of the physical aspects of the building as we scroll through the pages. So you see before you on the screen a rendering of 3536 Pear Tree Avenue and the special permit that is sought pursuant to this application at City Plan. Start by saying, what are we here for? We've been before this community board for variance applications. We've been before you for rezonings. That's not this. What we're here for tonight is a special permit application. And special permit applications are very different than rezonings and variances. A rezoning or a variance basically is taking the underlying zoning and offering some large change to that zoning because for some reason what you're proposing there doesn't fit in the surrounding zoning. Special permits, though, are seen as being in context with the surrounding area. And the only thing that you really have to show is that you meet the findings of the special permit. It's basically the equivalent of saying, if you can meet these narrowly drawn findings, we're going to allow for this use to be here. So you take a look on the map here, you take a look at the area in the circle, and that's an M21. And the site itself, which is on the corner of Boston and Pear Tree Avenue, is, you can see it right there. It's kind of an odd site. It doesn't offer a contiguous zoning lot. And if you wanted to build the building that we're proposing as of right, you'd be able to build it. If you wanted to build a 4-story manufacturing building, which frankly in an M21 could have noxious uses, chemical uses, certain hazardous materials, you'd be able to do that without coming to the community board. The reason that we're here tonight is for the use as a self-storage facility. And really what we're seeking to do here is not merely do a self-storage facility, but do a self-storage facility coupled with a catering hall. This was something which we've talked about with certain members of the community and which was seen as being a desirable use to complement the self-storage facility. So the 75,000 square foot building that's proposed here is available as of right. What's not available to us is on this 40,000 square foot lot is the 55,000 square foot self-storage facility. And what we've done is we coupled that with a 20,000 square foot catering facility. So next slide, Amanda. So you can see from the sites facing the site on Pear Tree Avenue, the area is one with manufacturing buildings, very much as you'd expect in M3 and M2 districts. There's nothing odd about this site in that regard. What is important to note about this site is that the site could be built with this 4-story building. And here, though, just allowing for this use, the self-storage use, is what causes us to come to the community board. Again, the banquet hall here is not something which would typically be paired with a Storage Fox facility, and Dino could talk a little bit to that and to the nature of his operations. But again, this was in consultation with, Musa and I talked to members of the community, and it was felt that there wasn't really a banquet hall in the area that serviced the community needs. And at this and said, why not? We have the opportunity here. We've got the space in the building. We've got a use in storage, self-storage, which practically typically takes place during the day. People come in, store their stuff, and leave, and then that leaves the facility mostly unused during the evening hours. Wouldn't it be a potential positive to allow for a catering facility, which is something that was tagged as being an underutilized part of the surrounding area? So again, you can see the storage facility in front of you. It's a 4-story proposed facility, as well as a catering facility, which appears towards the side of that. As we walk through the renderings, I think that once we get to the site plans, and Amanda should be there right now, I would ask Victor Folletti to weigh in on just the layout of the space, and then Dino can talk a little bit about his operations.
Good evening, Victor Folletti, project architect. Hello, everyone. So coming through the site plan here, you can go one more slide, Amanda, to the first floor plan. It's a little bit, keep going. One more, right there. So this is the first floor of the building. Onto the north end of the property, there is the catering hall with a drive-through entrance. First part is a cocktail area, and then an as-of-right use catering hall facility to the rear. Kitchen facilities, bathroom facilities, all provided on that level. And to the east of that is a ramp down to the parking garage for the parking for the catering facility. To the south of the catering hall is the loading bays for the self-storage, and then the self-storage retail portion that we like to call it, where people come in for some goods and product there for the self-storage facility. Actually, you can go back one to the cellar. Yeah, okay. That is the self-storage facility in the cellar, okay, below the catering hall and the loading area of the self-storage loading. Okay. Actually, go up two more. Yes, second floor. Okay, so the ramp that I was referring to on the east side, actually, that ramp goes up to the attended parking area to the south. So on the second floor, we have attended parking and indoor attended parking area as well. The large space to the north, that is a double high space of the catering hall. There is no self-storage in that area. Third and fourth floor is when we have the typical self-storage floors, both above the catering hall and the self-storage facility. Keep going. Next slide. So here we have the elevations of the building, Pear Tree elevation, Heathcote Avenue elevation, and the small Boston Road elevation. The building treatment is designed in a way to distinguish between the two uses, one for the catering hall and then one for the storage box, self-storage facility. Next slide. These are showing the sections through the building, indicating where all of the uses are. It is a somewhat complicated section of the building, dealing with the fact that we have two streets at two different elevations, and it is a through lot for a portion of it. And some of the ramps and some of the changes in grade that we need to accommodate created this somewhat complicated section. That's it for the walkthrough of the building. Those are the renderings of the exterior that the owner is proposing.
Thank you, Victor. So on the phone with us, he's on the WebEx call. Dino, if you just want to introduce yourself and talk just for a minute about your experience in self-storage and why you wanted to locate at this site.
I will. Thanks, Richard, and thanks everybody for giving us the opportunity here. Just very quickly, we started building self-storage facilities approximately 10 years ago. We created the Storage Fox brand, so we're operating our own facilities. As of last year, we were managing a portfolio of nearly 500,000 square feet, approximately 5,300 units. We currently have a number of other sites under construction or in various parts of the development process, some in the 5 boroughs, some in New Jersey, some in Long Island. And we acquired this site back in 2018. We thought that the location was a good site for self-storage. We did a demand study and determined that the area there is vastly undersupplied for self-storage. So we do believe that we would be serving the community. Self-storage is a use that's not doesn't put a heavy load on the utility and on the communities, or the utilities and the communities. So and the location was such that we don't think that it's a disruptive use. We try to build our facilities with with good lighting and creating a sense of safety and cleanliness. So we thought that this facility would be an asset to this particular area. The interesting sort of coupling of the banquet hall with the storage facility first came as a result of the special permit requirement, which came to pass right around the time we acquired the property. Initially, self-storage would have been a permitted use as of right, with a 50% set aside for a commercial use on the ground floor. But then the legislation was changed to require a special permit to obtain self-storage. We offered up the banquet hall / event space concept in response to what we viewed as a community need after conversations with the city council. So, in addition to providing self-storage, which we think is a needed use in the area, we are also providing what we see as a very high-end banquet hall, which will serve the community as well.
Thank you, Dino. And just to conclude this portion of the presentation, and of course, subject to the chair, we'd be happy to answer any questions. This is a special permit. So we are going through ULIP right now, and eventually we'll make our way to city planning and the council. And when you see the plans here, it's different from rezoning because these plans will be eventually the ones that are approved by city planning. So there's basically, to the extent that this layout, this mix of uses is desirable, this is what would be approved and this is what would be built. Unlike a rezoning where oftentimes there's, there may be a change in layout, floors, etc. That's not the case here. We're committed, and Dino is committed to building this facility in this area. So with that, the entire project team is available to answer questions.
Okay. I have a question. When you acquired this property, wasn't it proposed to build affordable housing on this site?
Richard, I think I can answer that unless
Sure.
you'd like to. I don't think that affordable housing was a permitted use as of right at this location.
No, we were going to give them a zoning change.
Well, actually, I'm happy to answer that. So this is in an M2 zoning district. And in M2 zoning districts, residential is not permitted as of right. In addition to that, and importantly here, you're also in the East Chester IBZ, which means that as a policy matter, the de Blasio administration has refused to allow for residential rezonings in these industrial business zones. So for those two reasons and others, they were never going to permit housing to be built at the site, which is one of the reasons why Dino initially found the site and wanted to build a commercial building here.
And the other question I have before I turn it over to my committee to ask you questions is, who's the councilman that you spoke that we needed this?
Well, actually, can you talk a little bit about our council member outreach?
Just breaking up, you said the council member outreach? Well, we met formally. We met with the former councilman Andy King, who expressed, some art galleries. Then he mentioned that the catering facility would be good for this community because there was a limited amount of them there. So, as the local council member, that's one who I spoke to, and some other electeds that I know are in the Bronx. But since Andy at that time represented the district, we took that under strong advisement.
So let me jump in, Mr. Stricker, because I got to follow up on that question. That was because that was my question. So are you saying that you, Mr. Moore, or you representing the group only spoke to one council person, and that was Andy King? Is that what I'm hearing?
We spoke to Councilman Andy King in regards to the facility and the community since he was the representative, correct?
Okay, and Andy King told you, so I'm hearing you correctly, because Andy King told you that this community needed an additional storage facility and or a banquet facility. He told you that, is what I'm hearing.
No, he said that the community needed a banquet facility. In other words, it wasn't just a storage facility because he thought that, there was other facilities that was either built or looking to come in. But the idea was to give something good for the community's use so they can benefit from it.
So that's my question. So I'm going to make sure I'm hearing you. So he told you out of his mouth that we needed another banquet facility.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, just FYI, we have a beautiful banquet hall on East Chester Road and Guyvin Avenue that's been there for years and years and donates a lot of stuff to the community. And right now they're hurting because you can't have parties. But the thing is, they're open to any community group that wants to have a party there, and they absorb a lot of costs for the community groups because they don't know they have the money. As far as needing an additional banquet hall, I really, for 700 people, I don't think so. And I believe we have more than enough storage areas. That being said, I would ask Michael or Harry to just call on who has, of the committee who has a question.
Well, I want to turn this over to Mr. Singh because, as I said, I try not to, micromanage the committee. So since he's a new first vice chair,
well, he's my vice chair. He can pick out
if he wants to jump in and facilitate because there's a couple of questions on the chat, and I see where Ursula's got her hand up as well. So if Mr. Singh would jump in, and I know he's here somewhere.
Yeah, no, I'm here. I just unmuted. Hi.
Okay, great.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So, Mr. Tomasetti said that I think in your presentation, I believe you said the community needs a self-storage facility, but I read the paperwork that was submitted, the studies and everything, and I believe there's one right across the street. So, how do you justify building one now right across the street from where one does exist?
That's a very good question, and I'm happy to answer that. Before we come into any location, we do a thorough analysis of the market, and we determine the existing supply and the demand, and we see if it makes sense. We wouldn't bring a storage facility into an area that we did not think needed it. So when we did our analysis, and this was back in, I'm going to say, March of 2019, we determined that there are approximately 460,000 households within a 3-mile radius of this location, which is your typical market, okay, for self-storage. Demand runs between 4 and 5 square feet per household. So the current demand for storage is around, anywhere between, let's just say between 1.8 and 2.3 million square feet of demand. When we looked at the existing supply at the time, there was approximately 1.2 million. So, even using the low end of the spectrum, 1.8 million versus 1.2 million of existing supply, there's 600,000 square feet of unmet self-storage demand within this marketplace. And our proposed facility would have about 60,000 net rentable, which is only 10% of the unmet demand. So not only do we think that the area could support our facility, but we feel that it could support other other facilities, as well. Now, obviously, you walk around the area, you drive around the area, you see there are a couple right around the corner, and I understand that it looks like they're everywhere, but they're there for a reason, and the demand is there, and as housing development continues in the Bronx, and the Bronx continues to grow, which it has, and it continues to do so, the demand will only increase, and there is a need in the marketplace.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. At this juncture, I don't have any more questions.
Thank you.
Harry, let's see who has questions and call on them. Did you catch me, Harry?
I did. I was just reviewing the chat really quickly to see. I believe
Because there are a couple of questions in the chat. Also, Harry, can you do us a favor and show your video too, please, so that they'll
I've been
know who you
trying.
are?
I can't get my video to switch on. I tried.
You and Carla, I tell you.
I have a question on the floor while you review the chat. This is Keisha Lago Martin.
Well, hang on for a second, Keisha. So, hang on. So this is Harry's first time doing this. So what's going to happen is he's going to go through the chat questions first, and then he's going to go through the committee's questions. So just hold on to your question. What I always do, Keisha, is I write mine down so that when they say something, so we just go forward. So like I said, so Harry's going to do that. So he's going to go through, because there are a couple of questions. So Harry, let's do this. Why don't we go through the committee's questions first and then go through the chat, because there are plenty of questions that are coming up in the chat, and you're always going to see those questions. So I think that's probably better for you to do it that way, and then go from there.
Absolutely. Is there any other committee member who has a question?
Oh, also, Harry, one other thing too. Also, look in your participants. If you look under your participants, you'll see a couple of people that have their hand raised. So Keisha's raised her hand. I know Ursula's raised her hand. John Isaac has got his hands raised. But if you go in the participants section, you see with Sydney has her hand raised as well. So I know we're kind of baptizing you by fire, but that's okay. We can handle it.
No, absolutely. So I think the first hand raise I see is from Deborah. So let's go with Deborah. Deborah, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, yes, my name is Deborah from the Bridgefield Civic League. I'm the president there, and I also am a lifelong member of the community. I just don't see a need for the storage. I think it's like 6 or 7 storages that's in the community. I think within I think the 5-mile radius of that community is like 6 storages already. As for a catering hall and other event halls that's in the area, I don't see a need for a 700 person catering hall in that area, so deserted.
So thank you, Deborah. I think the first question was already answered by Mr. Tomasetti, and I think Mr. Stricker touched on the second issue, which I'm sure we'll address again as we approach the end of all of the presentations. Why don't I ask Ms. Blair, please, committee member, to ask her question.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I have like an agreement and then a question. So I agree with Deborah that there shouldn't be any additional storage units in the area. As someone had brought it up, I actually went into my map and looked in that area to see how many are in a 5-mile radius, a 10-minute drive. There are more than 10. And that's both in the community and, right over the bridge there in Pelham, right over there in Mount Vernon. Secondly, if you were to continue into the community, how do you plan on, one, making the space work in terms of the banquet hall and parking, and 2, um, being involved in the community in terms of would this be able to sustain some kind of employment in the community? Whether, I don't know how many employees a banquet hall / storage facility could bring, but would that be something that would be long term?
If I could just start for a second on just the use of the facility. Just to be clear, because we made a point before, and I just want to make sure, that it was clear. An M21 district like you've got here allows for, it's the second most intensive commercial district in the city of New York. So you've got M3, which is like noxious chemicals and hazardous environmental materials. And then you've got M2, which is considered to be middle, manufacturing. So it's like pretty environmentally dirty stuff. So one of the things, the special permit looks at a range of items, and it does look at uses in the area and whether or not there is demand for this self-storage. And Dino's talked a little bit about that. I know that there's been comments in the chat about, can you share that material? We're happy to share those numbers. This is Dino's core business, and so he wouldn't have gone through really what's been, mounted now to well over 2 years if he really didn't believe in the site and believe that it was going to be used. But more importantly than that is that, they look at, one of the things special permit looks at is economic development objectives of the city. And when Dino was thinking about this self-storage facility and a complementary use, but one of the reasons that, other than the conversations with the council member, frankly, was that this use allows for, if you think of it not just as catering, but also as an event space, it allows you to really host a range of neighborhood and community groups who just need the space and want to occupy. And so, as Dino himself can address about bringing the community in, one of the things we always talked about as an applicant team was that, he does want to be part of the area. He does want this to be, utilized by the community, heavily by the community. And so that's kind of the reason to come in with this, box to say, okay, let's talk about programming. Let's talk about local hiring and all these other aspects, which are, important to Community Board 12 and the surrounding areas. So I'd let Dino talk for a minute, but I just want to be clear, like the building itself, you can just build bad uses in an M2. You can build 4-story bad uses. We want this to be a good use. And that's why, when you look at self-storage in particular, it's not an invasive use. It's relatively lightly used. People come in, people come out. It's considered to be, a direct amenity to the surrounding area. But Dino, I would just let you, talk about it.
Yeah, thanks.
To interrupt quickly, but in terms of the banquet hall, and providing a space to local neighborhood groups, the community to use to host events, I would say that I still don't see a use for that because we may not have many community centers, but we have a lot of churches in this community, and churches are more than willing and able to partner with community groups, and they more often than not do at times to host events.
I understand. I think that this space could be used by churches, by community groups. It's a very kind of unlimited, potential for the space. But Dino, did you want to kind of respond to that?
Well, the first question that you'd asked before anything was how much parking would be provided. So I just wanted to address that. The building design is allowing for over 100 parking spaces for the banquet hall event space. And then there's also some parking for the self-storage, but self-storage does not require much in the way of parking. So we do have over 100 parking spaces, some of it indoors, some of it on the rooftop there. So that, that is sort of a benefit for that. And then as far as, the banquet hall, we had discussions and, we were proposing whatever we could come up with to benefit the community, right? So we were talking about doing some kind of an art gallery or something where, a cultural center where the local community could display, culture items, things like that. And the banquet hall use seemed like sort of it's a banquet hall event space. So, while I can't speak directly to the need for that banquet hall, I think that it is enough of a broad use that there would be a benefit. And what I would like to do is I would like to hear from the community for some guidance as to who an operator for something like this would be. We would be willing to work with a local operator. Again, I'm in the self-storage business. I do construction and development and self-storage. I don't know a whole lot about event spaces, event planning, other than, again, the information that we got was that it was something that would be useful for the area, and we're willing to adapt that to the community's use. So, I think it's a broad enough use where we can adapt it to whatever the community requires, and we're willing to work with the community to determine what that is.
I think Ms. Martin has the next question.
Yes, thank you very much. As I agree with the other ladies as far as the storage facilities, because I drove through the neighborhood just between Bartow Avenue and 233rd Provost Avenue. I counted 8 storage facilities. I really don't feel that another one is necessary. The other thing you mentioned about the parking, I was a little confused. You said there would be an underground parking area under the storage facility. Is that correct? Underground parking for the banquet hall?
No, I did
This
not.
is Victor Folletti, the architect again. Sorry, I corrected that. The ramp is actually going up from the first floor to the second floor. It's not underground. Underground is self-storage.
Okay. And the other thing, as far as the banquet hall, there is a community center in Co-op City that is open to anyone holding an event. As far as the banquet hall. Plus, you have other small venues in the area. There's one on Tillotson, not far, actually diagonally across the street from Cube Smart on Tillotson. It's across the street from that storage facility. There's a place there where they have events. And I just feel that would be taking away from the other places in the area that provide that service. And I just really don't feel another storage facility is necessary.
Okay, thank you. I think we've addressed the issue. Keisha Martin?
Hello, good evening. I really just wanted to go over the square footage that was being allotted to the banquet hall and to the storage hall. Certainly, I'm in agreement with my other board members that storage space is not a necessity in that area, but I can see a banquet hall or something of the like being beneficial to the neighborhood. So can we just talk about how much square footage has been allotted to each space? And then my other questions may come from there.
Sure. Victor Folletti again. So the total area for the banquet hall is 20,361 square feet. The total area for the self-storage is 55,516. This brings the percentage of about 26 to 27% of the building will be used for the banquet hall.
And so were there ever any discussions about targeting the youth instead of a banquet hall, perhaps indoor basketball courts, indoor tennis courts, an indoor swimming pool, things of that nature?
Yeah, it's Rich. So I'd say two things about that. First of all, it's an M2 district, and so community facility uses are heavily regulated. You can't get a community center or a nonprofit. You can't get those uses in an M2 space. What you can get is kind of an event space, and I know that pursuant to previous conversations, we use the term banquet hall. Dino always kind of emphasized that it was banquet hall / event space, which is kind of like, okay, it's available for a user to come in and to really kind of put on the programming that they think is appropriate. It's not. We don't want people to think that this is basically being designed as a competitor to other banquet halls, and is an issue in that regard. It's not. It's basically kind of white space, which is going to be utilized in the way that people want to use it going forward. So again, the ideas are great. We appreciate them. I think that there were some ideas in the chat about using this as a demonstration space, and potentially where a third party comes in and says, we want to put up a display or something. But yeah, I mean, Dino, unless you have anything else.
So here's the thing, though. So as we're having this discussion, what we know is that a banquet hall space and an event space, right, like a raw space where people could come in and have, an art presentation or hang up their artwork and have a show for consecutive weeks. Those things look very different. So I think that in addition to having a conversation about whether the storage space works, I feel like there's so much more space that's being allotted to the event portion of it that will be available to the community. Well, not more, but at least maybe a little less than half. I'm okay with that, right? Because I get that the more that these buildings are coming up in our area, they're having smaller and smaller closet space, which is a whole nother issue. But I like the fact that it's a multi-use space. I just don't know what that other use should be and what it should really look like.
Yeah, when we've talked about it, we basically have said that we'd appreciate, sitting down and even having a committee from the community to be able to kind of delve into this and discuss some of those options. So we appreciate the comment, Keisha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Green?
Hi, I'm just wondering, this area, is there still an environmental issue going on? Are they still monitoring the area?
I can speak to this to the site specifically. I don't know about other parts of the area. This property was subject to a brownfield cleanup, which means that many years ago, I think it was called Hexagon Laboratories.
Hexagon.
Right. Was a large company there, and they were there for many years, and they polluted the ground in a very bad way. And I believe that funds were set aside by the government to clean up the site. Mm-hmm. We did all that research as we were going along, and we determined that they did clean up the site and that they conformed with what's called the remedial action work plan, which is a plan that they come up with to determine what needs to be done to make sure the site is complete. So that was complied with. The property, got a clean bill of health, but there is continued monitoring that occurs.
Okay. Yeah.
We are conforming with the continued monitoring. So
okay.
We go out there, we take samples. We're doing that, to determine that the levels are not increasing, that they're decreasing. And, obviously we would continue to do that as long as we own this building.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
George, you're next.
Thank you. So I just wanted to remind my board members, especially those that are going to be voting. I know that there's a lot of consternation about the fact that this is potentially going to be another storage facility. My concern is with the catering hall. This is an IBZ, meaning it's an industrial business zone. There are only specific uses. You guys have the zoning handbooks, or you should have them. You can look what that up is, and there's only specific uses. Now, we voted as a community board a year and a half ago on the M11 text amendment for building these storage facilities. The catering hall is as of right. So if they wanted to build a 4-story catering hall, they would not need to come before the community board. They're coming before the board because of the storage facility. That is what they're asking for permission for. They're not asking for permission for the catering hall. So, and the other thing is, I want you guys to explain the history of the site. It's a vacant site. It's been vacant for decades. So you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. If they want to build a storage facility and they paid the money to have this facility, then I guess our consideration is, do we let that happen? But again, please be aware that we're not voting on the catering hall. We're voting on the permitted use or the permission to let them build the storage facility. Now, if you can explain, because this is not the only storage facility that we've had built in our district. We've had one on Bronx Boulevard not too long ago. And they came to us and they said during that meeting that small businesses use these storage facilities in addition to residential people. Is that true of your storage facilities? Do you find that small businesses are using this so that they can store goods because they don't have that much space in their stores or something like that?
That's absolutely correct. Throughout the entire portfolio, we've seen small businesses range anywhere from 20% on the low end to as high as 40% of our facilities. Particularly, there are certain types of units that cater to the small businesses, ground floor levels, which we have, and also larger units tend to be used by the small businesses. Some storage operators like to build very small units because you get to charge a higher dollar per square foot. But we like to provide a mix of the large and small. The small businesses also tend to be, better long-term customers. They tend to be more consistent. So we trade off a little bit of that profitability for, good customers, good long-term customers, longer leases, and things like that. So yeah, we do feel that it is also servicing the small business community in the area.
My final question, can you speak to your neighbors? My understanding of the IBZ is that there are a lot of noxious uses. There's a construction plant concrete plant over there. There are other things. Who are your neighbors?
Yeah, across the street from us on Heathcote, there is a concrete plant. I believe to the south of us, there's some kind of a junkyard or automotive use. To the northeast of us, there is a warehouse, which I think they're doing wholesale food, which is they're a quiet use. And then there are quite a few what appear to be junkyards and automotive uses in the area as well. So that's what we're seeing there. And again, I think that a lot of people look at this and they say, "Oh, not another storage facility," but what's there now, as Mr. Torres pointed out, is a vacant lot. Although there is presently a tenant there, but storing some scaffolding. But what's there now is a vacant lot, and what could be there is a use that, yes, it's not exactly what everybody in this meeting wants necessarily, but it's a use that's not obtrusive. It's a use that does not put a lot of stress on the utilities, and it's a rateable, meaning that we're going to be generating property taxes there that aren't being paid now. Obviously there's property taxes paid on the land, which are minimal. So we're creating value there to the area.
Is there any other land use committee member with a question before I turn it over back to Mr. Stricker and Dr. Burke. Okay. Mr. Stricker, over to you. And then
Okay,
maybe
thank
Dr.
you.
Burke.
Harry, thank you very much for doing that for me. I still have an issue with the storage facility. As George said, yes, the catering hall can be built as of right. I still don't like the idea of the storage facility, especially when they said it's going to hold 700 people. They have room for 100 cars to park, which means if people come by car, and because transportation is very limited there, you're going to have to squeeze 7 people in per car if the catering hall is full. We need more parking. The 100 spots does not suffice to hold up the catering hall. And I'll tell you, I don't want to see them taking the parking space away from the bowling alley, which is just down the block. And I have issues with the catering hall to start off with because it's going to hurt East Chester Manor. But since they can build it as a right, it's fine with me as long as they can provide more parking, because parking is always an issue. But I'm dead set against the storage facility.
If I can respond to that for a minute. Just because, George had made a point about what else can you use this property for within the IBZ. Part of the study that was done and what you have to do for city planning is to demonstrate, what potential uses at the site are. And so here you're really able to get 16D, which is self-storage and some other limited uses, 17 or 18, which is like medium to heavy manufacturing. So within a quarter mile of this site, what was found was that vacant land and parking account for 35% of the lot area. 35% is then devoted to factory, and then there's additional square footage devoted to warehouses and storage. So it's, there's a really kind of a limited playlist as far as what you can do with this site. So I also wanted to make clear that this is a special permit, which means you can put conditions on it. So to the extent that people are, have any concerns, and again, Dino made this clear to us throughout the process, if there's any concern about the catering, which really, again, we look at it as a pure white box event space, to the extent that the community board says, that they want attendance to be capped, et cetera, they enter that into their resolutions, and then that can basically be adopted by, whether it's the Bronx Borough President, city planning, or the council. So we would hate for that to get in the way of what we view would be really what here would be like a productive building, something that's designed nicely, and something which, won't amount to another auto yard or something like that. So again, we appreciate everyone's time on this and just want to kind of reiterate some of the points that George made.
I will say your building looks nice, but storage, we got more storage than we require as far as I'm concerned. I mean, every time you turn around, they put up a new storage facility. And basically, I believe when the land values go up on the land, all these storage facilities are going to disappear, and they're going to put other stuff where they are now. They're only using the storage facilities to get some type of income until they can get a better income on something else.
Hey, there were 2 questions from the Assembly Member's office, Leon Tolton. Regarding the attended parking on the second floor, how many vehicles can space accommodate? What safeguards are in place to make sure the parking space is only for those attending events at the banquet hall? And the second question was, how many jobs will be created by the storage facility, the storage side, and the catering side? Will there be a preference for CB12 residents when hiring employees, e.g., 20% minimum committed to CB12 residents?
So I can answer the question of the parking. So this is going to be a fully attended parking garage. This will be provided strictly for the catering facility. There will be attendants there receiving the guests coming into our off-street driveway, taking the cars and valeting the cars in our parking lot. 100% for the banquet facility only.
Is that going to be on the CO?
Yes, that will be. Fully attended parking will appear on the certificate of occupancy, yes.
Okay.
I want to know what you're going to do with the excess cars that come to the facility.
Well, right now, the parking is provided as per the New York City guidelines for catering facilities. Their ratio is 1 parking space for every 8 people. That's in the New York City zoning resolution, and that required 87.5 spaces. We've exceeded that and provided 95 just for the banquet hall alone.
Yeah, that's all well and good, but that's the only way to get to that banquet hall is to drive, because there's limited bus service, and I don't know if anybody's going to a big party at a banquet hall that's going to take the 16 or the 30 bus there.
35, 56.
I have issues with the parking.
The capacity.
In fairness, there should be some street parking, but I do recognize the concern, Mr. Stricker.
You guys also didn't speak to the hiring, the jobs.
So as far as the self-storage use goes, unfortunately, that is a use that does not have a large number of employees. An operational storage facility, we would see between 7 and 10 full-time employees there, including management and people running the store and everything like that. We would absolutely look to hire from the community. We do that at all the locations. We're always looking to the community because that's always the best way. As far as the event space, catering hall, again, we would be leasing this space to an operator, hopefully a local operator, and we would expect and also hope that they also pulled from the community, from the local community. I don't know exactly how many employees are required to run a catering facility, but I know it's quite a bit more than a self-storage facility. And I know you're going to have your kitchen staff, you're going to have your parking attendants, you're going to have I think that there's a large opportunity there for creation of jobs.
Would it be incumbent upon this leasee then to get the liquor license and all that other stuff, or are they going to be operating on temporaries?
Yes, I believe it would be incumbent upon them to get the liquor license.
Okay.
Mr. Isaac, if you have a question.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. One of my big problems is that area has like all those trucks like littered around there, and it's hard for someone to come to a catering place in that area where all these trucks are. It's like you're trying to squeeze something where it's not supposed to be. And at us, we voted against not allowing these storage facilities, and then now we're going back against what we voted against because people are living in them and all kind of stuff. So, but it's what you guys want to do.
Ms. Bond?
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. You referred to the fact that you have a local operator who you would like to manage the catering hall side. Do you have some discussions with local operators already in motion? How is that going to work?
As of now, we have not spoken to local operators because obviously we wanted to get further along on the process here and understand how this was going to happen and exactly the nature of how this was going to be developed. Again, we would look to the community for guidance there, absolutely. And, that's part of the reason for having these conversations, is to be able to speak to the community and understand what the needs are, and, and how to tailor that use to what would work for the community. So we have not had any discussions yet, but that would be the plan as we got further along on these discussions.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Yes, I believe the representative from Gun Hill Council has a question.
Okay, let them speak. Go ahead.
You're muted, sir. You have to unmute yourself.
Mr. Hall, no one can hear you.
We can't hear you, Mr. Hall.
Mr. Hall, we still cannot hear you. We can't hear you, Mr. Hall.
Robin, unmute yourself.
He did. His mic is bad. He's got a bad mic.
Mr. Hall, maybe you could type the information in the chat.
Yeah, type your question. Oh, he did it already. So let's look for it. So while we're looking for Mr. Hall's question, I think I'll just wrap it up. So Mr. Singh, Attorney Singh, if you could look for Mr. Hall's question, I would appreciate that. Let me just, I think, wrap up by saying this. I think you heard the concerns of the chair and the vice chair of this committee, as well as board members and committee members and constituents. I think our district manager does make a good point. So I can tell you how I feel personally and what I would like to see from you the entity. So personally, it's been said ad nauseum about storage facilities, and so I need not repeat that. If it were me personally, I would not want to eat at a facility, even though it's as of right. I would not want to eat at a facility where there's a recycling processing plant not too far away, where you have a concrete plant that's not too far away, because then the question that I'm having is, okay, well, I'm getting nice, I'm getting dressed up, and then I'm going to, in essence, an industrial area to talk about eating. Now, personally, that's not appetizing to me, so I don't know who your clientele would be or who you'd be trying to attract, but I just think that would be utter disgusting. But that's just my personal opinion. So I wouldn't even go eat there. So then the question then becomes, will you truly gain a profit by setting up a banquet hall there, even though it's as of right, which is why I don't understand why the hell Councilman King would have told you guys that would have been a good idea, because that, in my opinion, that's idiotic. But again, I'm only speaking for me. I'm not speaking for the committee. I'm not speaking for the board. I'm speaking as an individual, Mike Burke. With that being said, what I would hope is that you have taken the first step in coming before this committee, which we deeply appreciate. What I would like to hope is that maybe, I know that you stated that there are limited uses for this particular property. Maybe that if we look at this a little, if we look at this, maybe we could find a mutual use that both you, because obviously you guys are in the business of making money, right? And we understand that. So hopefully there's a mutual use that you could agree to, and that we as a community could agree to, where the property would have a much better use. And I think where you guys can be happy and we could be happy. And so I'd like to ask you, because we're all about collaborative relationships. And so I would ask that you work with myself, our district manager, Mr. George Torres, as well as Ursula Green, as well as the executive leadership and the committee leadership. As I said, I trust Mr. Stricker, I trust Attorney Singh, and all of the members that are assigned to that committee. So if you'd be willing to do that, we'd be willing to work with you and making certain that we come to an amicable agreement. Is that something that you're willing to do?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We want to hear from you. And again, the information that we've gotten thus far, we felt was the voice of the community. Perhaps it wasn't the voice of the community. Perhaps it was the voice of one person. You know, but we are all ears. You know, we want to listen to what works for the community. We want to give something that's good for the community, that's helpful, and obviously we want to get something in return so that it all
Yes.
makes economic sense, right?
Yes.
And if
Yes.
the two things can work together, you know, I think it's a win for everybody.
Yes, and I totally agree with you. Obviously, as I said before, you guys are in the business of making money, and we do not want to infringe upon that, because despite how what may be happening politically, this is a capitalist country, and we do realize that. As I said before, I think that what you've heard was the passion of community residents, and what we want to make certain that it's beneficial to you and it's beneficial to us, and that would be as chair of the board, representing all of the constituents in the community. That would be the only thing that I would ask you to do, is we could, if it's possible, to find a use that would work for both of us.
I'm happy to have those conversations, and I'd like to do that right away.
Okay, thank you so much.
My apologies. I think Ms. Weir has a question. I may have overlooked the chat. Ms. Weir?
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's okay. I know that they have talked about the banquet hall, but that's not even my question anymore. Was there a survey put out to the community as of what they want to see? I know that there are a lot of young entrepreneurs in the area and people who have their own small businesses, and there's not enough kind of office rental spaces. So I can't remember the company who does it, but they have a lot of spaces in Manhattan where they rent offices and they run their small business out of their offices. Was there a discussion about having kind of an office space or a studio for people to rent and kind of use as their own in a leasing agreement versus WeWork? Yes, thank you. Versus building a storage facility in which is just storage. If that can be built, can there be spaces built for people to actually work as WeWork?
We have not looked into office space there. We have also not really looked into the live work concept there. We have seen in the last year, especially with COVID, that these smaller, the WeWork model is to kind of cram as many people into a very small space as possible, because they need to charge the top dollar per square foot. So they have to fill these spaces. And with the COVID model that's happening now, where more people are working from home, and there's a need for social distancing, unfortunately, that model doesn't work for WeWork spaces very well. I do believe that also WeWork is going through some, let's say, financial difficulties, even I think before COVID. Because I think it was sort of proven that their model doesn't really work as well as they tried to make it seem. And they do a great job of marketing and all that stuff, but the model doesn't work as well. And then obviously with COVID and the need for, open spaces and social distancing, that doesn't seem to be a viable model. We would be happy to look into it again. But from everything that I've seen, it's not a financially viable model at this time.
But you can't put co-working spaces in an M2, or can you?
No, I think that as we review this with the community and talk amongst ourselves, I think use group 6 offices are something which we could probably look at. Obviously, it has to make financial sense. I would just kind of reiterate what Mr. Burke said before, which is, we were kind of relying on a limited, set of opinions when we heard that this was something that was extremely desirable for the area. And so, to the extent that there's something which fits in the uses and which works for Dino and such, I think it's a great opportunity, and I think it's something which would definitely be worth talking about. So. Again, even if the WeWork model doesn't work, there's probably some compatible uses which can be reviewed, which may come closer.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be WeWork model. Don't copy what they're doing, but it could be something in the terms of having a space, leasing it for 6 months, leasing it for a year, for whatever people may need, and they can use it in their own way and time, of course, to be socially distant, and even further down the line, because, we all hope that COVID will reduce itself and everyone can get back to a way of life. And, for the small business owners that created their businesses during COVID, once their business starts to expand, they're probably going to want an office space that's not their home at that point.
That's a good point. And, certainly we could look at some form of office space. That's not a bad idea for sure.
So, Mr. Thomas said, let me just wrap this up by saying this, because we have another group that needs to present. The one thing I'm proud of in assembling this land use committee is that you have spoken with some of the best minds that Community Board 12 has to offer. You've spoken with our district manager, you've spoken with our community associate, Ursula Green, who by far keeps this operation going. I mean, they make my job a hell of a lot easier. You've spoken with Mr. Stricker and Attorney Singh, who I trust with leading this this committee, and the fact that you have the resources and the members of this committee who are very knowledgeable. And as I say, we want to work with you. And so on behalf of myself and the first vice chair, Jerry Bennett, we thank you for coming in. And as I said, we really want to work with you. And we want to come up with a solution that works for you, because we want you to be happy and we want to be happy. So I'm going to, if you don't have Mr. Stricker's information or Attorney Singh's, I'm going to ask that they put it in the chat. Clearly, you have my information. You have Mr. Torres's information. And I hope that you keep in contact with us so that, we can keep this dialogue going. And I really hope that you accept this invitation.
I will. I appreciate you offering it, and I appreciate the time tonight to talk about our project. It's something, we've been working on for a long time, and I think that from the get-go, I always made it clear to everybody that I was communicating with that, we want to serve the community. We believe that we are serving the community even with the storage, even though it sounds like everyone here doesn't necessarily agree with that. But in exchange for being able to do that, we want to do something that works for the community. And shame on us if we weren't speaking to the right person or the right people. That's on us. Now I feel that we're sort of keyed into the right people, and we seek that guidance, and we're very happy to work with you on that.
Well, we're honored that you came before us. And again, thank you so much. And I see where Attorney Singh has put his information in the chat. So please capture that. And I will get you Mr. Stricker's. Actually, I'm going to have Attorney Singh get you Mr. Stricker's information as well. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
And I want to thank you for coming out. And I know we want to work with you because we want to see the land develop. We don't like junkyards and other stuff. And, talk to us and we'll work with you. We'll come up with something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
So, Mr. Stricker, you want to introduce our next set of presenters?
What's that, Barto? Oh.
Yeah, hang on for a second. Let me
Mike, which one is it?
Hang on for a second. Let me grab it, Mr. Stricker. So the next set of presenters, I believe. Okay, so we have a presentation by Greenberg Tariq, if I'm saying properly, LLP, and what they're doing is they're seeking to extend or eliminate the term of the variance used for 2929 Edison Avenue. So with that being said, I want to say it's Jennifer Greenberg was the liaison, and I want to make certain that I don't know if she's on or someone else is on.
My name is Jessica.
Jessica, okay, Jessica, okay.
The date was right on point, so you're halfway there. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Rubenstein. I'm an attorney with Greenberg Charig. I would like to share a PowerPoint with this on screen, so I'm going to try that right now. Let me know if you see it. Do you see it?
No, we don't yet. So you did hit share, right?
I hit share and I click share screen.
And then it's going to ask you to, so I don't know if you're sharing from a PowerPoint or if you're sharing from a PDF file, but once you hit share, then it's going to ask, okay, we're starting to see something.
You see it?
Yes, something is, yep, okay, there it is.
There
The
it's
presentation?
Yes, there you go. All right.
Okay, great. So we are here tonight to discuss a BSA application filed on behalf of Acadia Bartow Avenue LLC, which owns the retail building at 2829 Edson Avenue. As you can see on this slide, it shows that the site is located right off exit 11 on I-95 and across from Co-op City and the Bartow Mall. The BSA application that we filed seeks to eliminate the term of the variance granted by the BSA in 2001, which allowed commercial uses on the site. If we cannot eliminate the term, we would like to extend it for another 20 years. And before I move on, actually, I want to introduce the applicant team here with us tonight. We have Dan Eggers, who is an attorney with me at Greenberg Traurig. We have Josh Bissinger, Acadia's Director of Asset Management. We have Herman Velez Rodriguez, Acadia's Senior Director of Construction, and Dennis Flynn, the Project Architect. I'll be the one presenting this PowerPoint, but they're sort of here as my backup in case you stump me on a question. So as we move forward, I'll run through the slides with you. So this second slide shows a more zoomed in aerial. The site is the retail building between the gas station and, don't tell the applicants before us, there's a storage facility right next door too. It has frontages on Edson, Grace, and Bartow Avenues. The site's in an R4 district where commercial uses are not permitted without a variance. To give you a little background, in 2001, the BSA granted the variance to permit construction of this retail development. The site was in the same R4 district it is in today, and commercial uses were not permitted. The variance had a 20-year term, which is set to expire on July 17, 2021. So first, we are seeking to eliminate the term since there have been no complaints about the property, and going back to the BSA every 20 years is burdensome and costly. However, we understand that the BSA and your board may decide that the term of years is still appropriate for this use. And if that's true, then we respectfully request that the term be extended for another 20 years to July 17, 2041. The next few slides show photos of the site from different angles. The first slide here shows the Grace Avenue side where you can pull into Pizza Hut, Wing Street, and check cashing. Not sure if any of you have been here before. The next slide shows the Edson Avenue side where you pull into the parking lot to access Clean Right Center, Joyful Dragon, African Market, or the Western Union. This slide shows the Bartow Avenue side where the entrance is closed off to cars, but you can still see a portion of the parking lot next to the gas station. After the original variance in 2001, between 2003 and 2006, the BSA approved minor changes to the site plan. The most recent changes are shown on the site plan dated March 9, 2006. The first temporary certificate of occupancy for the building was issued on June 7, 2005, and the building received a final CO on August 27, 2014. That CO is still valid. You may be wondering what, if anything, has changed since the original approval. The existing site conditions comply with the most recently approved plans from 2006, with just 4 minor exceptions. We are asking for these changes to be legalized with the application. The first change relates to the location of the dumpster and the loading berth. On this slide, I juxtaposed the 2006 site plan on the left to the existing site plan on the right. As you can see, the dumpster and the loading berth have switched places with one another. So here and here. So you'll see on the 2006 plan, the loading berth is on the left, the dumpster is on the right. On today's site plan, the dumpsters are on the left and the loading berth is on the right. Here's a photograph of what the dumpster and the loading berth look like today. The second change is that the landscaping today is slightly different from the 2006 landscaping plan. However, as you can see on this slide, the site is still well landscaped. The third change is that the height and width of the pylon sign have changed. The original sign, which you could see in the photograph on the right, was 500 square feet. with a width of 33 feet and a height of 15 feet. Today, the sign is still 500 square feet, but the width is 25 feet and the height is 20 feet. You can see the photo of the sign on the right, and to the left, you see the 2006 sign next to the existing sign. The last change relates to the size and location of the signs on both of the building's facades. This slide shows that how the signs were supposed to look on the Grace Avenue side in the 2006 plans and on the existing plans. We also included a picture on the left. As you can see, the 2006 plans show 3 signs that are each 200 square feet. Today, the signs are smaller with only the names of each store or restaurant. The same applies to the Edson Avenue side. As you can see here, the 2006 plan shows a 300 square foot sign. Today, the configuration has changed, but the square footage has decreased. The owners say these signs are better suited for their operation. So in conclusion, this application seeks to first eliminate the 20-year term of the variance that expires this July. But if your board and the BSA still feels that a term is still appropriate, then we are respectfully asking that the term be extended for another 20 years until 2041. We are also asking to legalize the 4 minor changes to the plans that I just went through. Like I said before, to our knowledge, there hasn't been any complaints about the site, and returning to the BSA every 20 years is a managerial burden for the owners. So they would like to do whatever they can to keep the commercial uses without having to go through this process every 20 years. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
I want to thank you for the presentation. It was very well done. And I will tell you, the place, the site that you're talking about is amazingly immaculate. It really is a site you would want to shop at or go to the restaurant. I mean, I have never, ever seen since the initial build, and I was concerned when they initially built this place, what impact it would have in the surrounding area. And the only impact that I could see, it bettered the area. You know, these are small stores that the community likes to use, and I don't see any issues with your site there.
Well, thank you. I think you should have given the presentation instead of me. I couldn't have said it better myself.
No, yeah, I mean, the management of that mall, I call it a mini mall, has kept the site really, really clean. You don't see trash accumulating. You know, it's amazing because I get off that exit all the time. I'm very impressed with it.
Great, thank you very much.
Anybody in the board, anybody in the committee have a question?
Yeah, actually, well, George has a question. Before we go to George, thank you very much, Ms. Rubenstein. That was indeed a very concise and very informative presentation.
Thank you.
George?
George?
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute myself. All right, so I think Jessica, right? It's Jessica?
Yeah.
Okay, Jessica and I had this conversation. Well, we had it on email. My question is, I became the district manager in 2015, and this particular site has been on my radar. Ursula can tell you, because Arno Avenue, and my pet peeve as a district manager is unfinished streets. So Grace Avenue, up until 2019, was not a through street. And right across the street from your site, the church built out Grace Avenue.
Right.
Eli Avenue, which runs parallel to Grace and then Edson on the other side. Eli Avenue, also an unfinished street on one side. You have semi-attached private homes on one side. You have a sidewalk, half the street built. Then you have mud. You have a vacant lot. Then you have the church now that built out the sidewalk and half the street. Actually, they built out the whole street. We love churches because of their benevolence. They built out the whole street. They built out all the sidewalk all the way up to the private homes on Grace Avenue. Your side of the street, not so much. I'm going to share my screen so we can see what it looks like today.
Okay.
Let's see, share. Here we go. I hope you can see this. Can you see this? Yeah? Okay, good. So this is Grace Avenue. You see vehicles parked here right next to the storage facility. I understand the storage facility is not your site, but this is an unfinished sidewalk. So up until 2019, when this church over here was built and they have a nice, lovely sidewalk with new planted trees, you have a path. You can't really see it here, but you had a path that the people who live on this block had to navigate in order to get to Bartow Avenue with the bus station, which is right in front of the gas station. So I don't see any plans or anything that indicates that you're going to be doing this. The other question I have, or building out this sidewalk, the other thing is, I don't think as a community board, we should get rid of the variance. The variance is what keeps us or keeps these people in check. This owner, and I don't know, and that's what I've tried to discern for the last 5 years, who owns this site. Because every time it comes up, you guys are asking us to eliminate the variance. I've been licking my chops because I want Arno Avenue to be built out all the way to Edson, and I want this sidewalk to be built out. Because as you go and run the length of the street all the way to Arno Avenue, up Grace Avenue, we'll just take a look. No sidewalk on the right side. No sidewalk. No sidewalk. It's a little forest over here. No sidewalk. No sidewalk. No sidewalk. No sidewalk. No sidewalk. No sidewalk. It even extends past Arno Avenue. This is Arno Avenue. This is what should be a street that connects to Edson Avenue, the other side, and then can let you onto the highway. We don't have that. What we have here is a fence and a parking lot behind the storage facility. Nobody knows who owns this. I've complained to city planning. I've complained to the variances that come before us. We even had the people from the storage facility who claim that they didn't own the site. Who are you leasing the site from? Is this your site? Do you own this site? Are you leasing it from somebody? I want to have a meeting with them. Because again, this should be a street. And that sidewalk should be done.
My name is Josh Bissinger. I'm with Acadia Realty, and we own the site that you were here in front of you today for. I think we've owned it for a number of years, but our property line ends at the storage building, right? So, we're one piece of the puzzle here. Certainly happy to set up a meeting and kind of talk through a broader plan. I'd be happy to do that.
Mike, the concern is, are you suggesting then that the storage facility is its own block and lot?
Right.
And
It's a separate owner. We own only the shops that were presented in the first slide.
But which came first? The shops or the storage facility?
From the original developer, split the two parcels, if I'm correct. Is that right, Jessica?
Yeah, so I can answer that for you. The storage facility and the retail development were built at the same time. The storage facility was actually built under another variance with a separate calendar number, and it was granted on the same day as the variance for our site, the retail development. We're only here for the retail development because Acadia, like Josh said, does not own the storage facility, and we have no control over it. So the only thing that we can present to the BSA is our tax lot and our site.
Your tax lot also encompasses some of that sidewalk that's unfinished. Are you fixing that?
I don't believe there are any plans to fix the sidewalk, but the sidewalk is really, I could be wrong on this. I'm not 100% sure how it works, but I believe sidewalks are a DOT issue.
No, they're an owner issue. I worked for the Department of Buildings before coming to the community board.
Okay.
You have to file a BPP. I understand that the buildings department waived the requirement for a sidewalk because the only thing you were fronting at the time was a vacant lot. There is a church now that built their side of the sidewalk and the rest of the street. You don't even have to build the street now because they did the 5 feet. You were required as an owner to build your sidewalk and 5 feet into, or whatever, half the road, basically. So I want to know, because again, for 5 years, I've been literally waiting for this moment.
Well, I'm glad it's your time to shine.
It's not a time to shine. It's actually, it's a discredit to the community that back when you guys felt that you needed to build this, you didn't feel the obligation to build a sidewalk for pedestrians.
You know,
You
I
built
don't.
half the road. That's the oddity here is that Grace Avenue, if many of my board members remember, only 30 feet of it was built so that it could enter into this retail facility. Never built at the length of the retail facility.
True.
Right. Okay. So to be honest, that's not something that we've discussed with Josh and the other members of the team. So if maybe we can have some time to go over that and get back to you. We can't give you an answer right now.
Okay. But again, just for my board members, this is precisely our role in BSAs and land use, not what we were doing before. This is the role that we have as board members. This is where you guys get to shine. They are asking you to waive the 20-year variance. The community since 2001 has had to wait in order for this moment, 20 years later, to ask for the sidewalk. And in those 20 years, you've had the development of 12 homes and a church on Grace Avenue. Now there's no reason or there's nothing compelling these owners to do this with the exception of this BSA. The fact that they're here before us asking for permission to get rid of the variance, this is where you hold their feet to the fire and you get community concessions and you say, build the sidewalk for me, build the street so that our people are not walking on dirt and parking their cars in dirt to get to their homes or their facilities. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Harry, anybody else want to speak?
Is there any other committee member with a question? Any other board member with a question? I think that's it, Mr. Stricker.
Okay. Well, what I want to say is that I don't like giving up variances. So you'll be back in 2041. I don't know if I'll be here. It'll be a miracle if I am. But yeah, the variance is a no-go. You're going to have to get an extension another 20 years. And I don't see how much work. No, I don't see how much work you have to do every 20 years to apply for the variance. I mean, who knows what this city is going to look like in 20 years from now? That, what type of government we will have and what their ideas will be. So I think the 20-year variance works. Now, as far as the sidewalk goes, I thank George for bringing it to our attention because I was unaware. I thought when the church put this street in on Grace Avenue, they put sidewalks on both sides, but they did more than they had to do, even if they didn't put the sidewalk in. And I would like you to come back to us telling us that the owners of the property are willing to put the sidewalk in, because the sidewalk, it's expensive, but not that expensive. And I would like to see a sidewalk there.
Okay. Like I said before, this is an issue
And the street.
we have discussed. So let us get our team together and talk about it, and we'll get back to you. Let me ask you a question. When is the full board meeting? Because we would hopefully like to get back to you with an answer before that.
January 28th.
Yeah, fourth Thursday in January.
The 28th at 7 p.m.
So would it be okay with you if we had until then to discuss this and come up with a plan?
Yes.
Yeah, I would suggest that you work with Carl to have a meeting before we have the full board meeting.
Yes, definitely. A mini land use committee meeting, a mini land use meeting, so we know what we're going to present to the board.
Right. Okay. So
Right.
we will
If
certainly
you
get
guys
back.
if you guys come back and say no, maybe the board will have a different idea of what they want to do for you.
I understand. So we'll get back to you sometime before the full board meeting. hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, make sure you contact me, and I'll have a land use committee meeting, a quickie, because it wouldn't take much to see what you're going to offer us.
All right. Thank you, Carl.
Okay. Thank
And-
you for the presentation, by the way.
Yeah, and Jessica, you can set up the meeting for the landlord or the storage facility as well, so that we can find out who owns that property, because I want them both done. I want the through street and I want the sidewalks.
Well, we have no control over
I understand that,
this.
but you know who they are. We had the gas station here. If people remember, we had Sunoco was here before the community board. I think you were the people who represented them, or maybe it was LaBelle. I don't recall, but they were here 14, 16 months ago, and they said the same thing. My understanding of that development is, like you said, they were all developed at the same time, meaning that they were all sold at the same time. So they all have the same landlord. Now, I guess the storage facility broke off in 06 or whatever. You guys have your section, and then the gas station has its own section. So now it's 3 different lots, is what you're saying.
The gas station's on its own separate tax lot. Our retail development is on its own separate tax lot, and the storage facility, it's on its own separate tax lot.
Okay. All right.
But they were developed, I guess, sort of around the same time, because the variance for the storage facility and our development were granted on the same day.
Yeah. All right. Listen, I know this is not all you, but you guys have resources that I don't have at the community board. You will be able to research who the owner is and get me that information, and then we can all have a conversation. And I would imagine that the storage facility is going to be up because their calendar is also coming up soon.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Anybody else have questions for Jessica? If not, we'll close the hearing.
Well, let me just say this to them. So, Ms. Rubenstein, so you can see why as a chair, it just makes my job a lot easier when we have our district manager and our committee members and committee chairs and committee members that are as talented as they are, because they ask you tough questions. I'll just say that in no way, shape, or form am I the person to give up any leverage, right? So I'm just saying that's just how I operate, period. So, and not that I want to beat you over the head with the leverage, but I'm not about giving up anything unless, we're going to benefit from it. So I'm just telling you that's just how I am. And the fact that our chair, committee chair, and our district manager know quite a bit about this topic is advantageous. And so, like I said, that's just where I stand as a board chair, because my role is to protect the board and the community at large. I think that the one thing I was telling one of our board members this earlier today is that sometimes it's good to say that you don't know a topic, and when people are more knowledgeable than you, then that's fine. But I've also learned that excuses are tools of the incompetent. They're used to build monuments of nothingness, and those who practice their uses are seldom capable of anything else. So to Mr. Torres's point, you have access to resources that we may not have. And so I think that, again, as we told the previous presenters, we need that collaborative effort in order to make things happen, in order for you and Mr. Eckers and Mr. Bissinger and Mr. Flynn to get what you're asking for. And just know that from a chair's point of view, I'm not about giving up any leverage. So to that end, if you, like I say, you have Mr. Stricker's information, you have Attorney Singh's information. So my suggestion, as the district manager said, reach out to them, get a committee meeting with them, and meet with this talented committee. And if they can come to an agreement with you, fine. But you need to come back to the table before we approve or disapprove anything.
Understood.
Okay? Not a problem. But again, on behalf of Community Board 12, on behalf of the board members and the constituents and the residents, thank you very, very much for coming. We do appreciate you.
Thank you for having us.
Not a problem. Mr. Stricker, did you want to talk about the farmers market idea, or do you want to wait until January?
What we can do is just run it by the land use committee. Dr. Burke and I were discussing the possibility of replacing a farmer's market where the old golf course was, where Andy King killed our shopping mall. We don't need the whole site. The site is owned by EDC, and I want to get some thoughts later on. You don't have to be tonight, of how we can do that, because we only need a portion of it, but we still have to go by the guidelines of the 6-foot spacing, when you're walking around and stuff like that. Farmers markets are a little tougher to handle now, although the one down in Lower Manhattan where my wife works is still there, and I'm very surprised because they're on top of each other. But I think that would benefit the community to have a small farmers market. And if we decide to go with it, I would ask the Community Relations Department, again, this has to be approved by all of us, at Montefiore to sit down with us, because they had opened 3 or 4 farmers markets in different areas of the Bronx. So I think they would be a great asset to us if we decide to go that route. So, think it over, and the next meeting you can come back with your thoughts, or you can email me. I do look at it like once a month, but then that's when I get a chance to get to a computer. But since the libraries are closed, but it's something that we might look at, because we do need fresh fruits and vegetables. I don't know how Alday across the road from where we're going to have the market is going to feel about it. But, we have to take care of our constituents. And this is one way of giving them healthy, fresh, grown food. Thank you. Any questions?
Let me ask one last question, Mr. Stricker, and I think, and you and I can, like I said, talk about this like we've been talking about this, and I just had another idea as you were speaking. I think that if we bring in Ms. Benitez and Mr. Lanzana in on this would be great as well, because, she's economic development chair and Mr. Lanzana's our health chair. Maybe we can sell this as, we have horrible health statistics that the BP always beats us over the head with. Maybe we can use it. Yeah.
You're right. Both Judy and Carl are excellent for this.
Yes, along with yourself. So.
Yeah. Why don't we just form a small committee to look into this, to report back to the land use?
Okay, that's fair enough.
Okay.
Well, hell, you did land use, Mr. Stricker, so.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm just saying, to report back to, because you have some people that are not on the land use that will be working on this, so we can bring it back to the full committee at land use.
Well, yeah, that would be, health and bring in economic development. So, there are a lot of people on this, like Hussein Abdul is on the call, and,
right.
And some of those others. So, yeah.
Because both Judy and Carl know their stuff.
Yes.
They're really good hard workers. They've been on the board a long time. They have worked, from the day one they were on the board, they worked, on the board to get things done. And Judy Benitez, she sits on the Community Advisory Board of the Moses Division of Montefiore, and that's where the farmers markets originated from. So, we got a good end if we're going to go with this to get it done.
Can we use Indian Field?
Carl, yes. We probably can ask to put one in Indian Field. Yeah, why not?
Okay.
We have to deal with the Parks Department there, and I don't think they would have any issues, because I have never seen them say no to a farmer's market, because it's bad publicity.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other business before the board tonight? Any other business before the committee?
I just was thinking that maybe in addition to the farmers market, we could put in maybe some basketball courts or tennis courts over in that area too.
See, that gets involved with Parks and EDC. That gets to be a problem. Because Parks says they have no money and EDC is not going to fund it. That's a great idea. I love it. To tell you the truth, but that would be the hardest thing to get, but that doesn't say we shouldn't try. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.